Mel Phillips died in 2012. A guy named David Bixenspan did a report in 2018 saying Mel Phillips died. Okay? Tom Cole died in 2021. Between 2018 and 2021, we didn't hear about Tom Cole. Tom Cole didn't come out and talk about Mel Phillips after Mel died. Now he could have opened up more about Mel Phillips after he died. Did he? No. Terry Garvin died in 1996. Check the date on that. That gave him, 25 years to talk about Terry Garvin? Didn't talk about Terry Garvin at all. All he kept saying on any report, these guys got what they got. Everybody found out what was behind, blah, 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 blah. It's all he ever did. He stuck to his script. He stuck to his story. He didn't go off script at all. Pat Patterson died in 2019. He had 2 years for Pat. Never came out and said anything bad about Pat after that. Why is it, Lee Cole, that after your brother's death, you decided to continue his crusade, when he didn't do it himself when he was still alive and these guys were dead? Why? If everything was so bad, why didn't he turn around and do it? Okay? And that's my biggest thing. These guys were dead now. Tom was the only one alive. He didn't do it. And to this day, if I'm right, Lee Cole's family has ostracized him. They want nothing to do with him because he's doing this. I would not turn my back on my kids if it meant making $1. And yes, I do have them. I have a son, a daughter, 24 and 22. Okay? And you know what? My son met Mel one time but before you can meet him any more times than that, we had our thing. And the one thing I want people to know, it wasn't always hunky-dory with me and Mel.
And we are going to, like I said, there's a question I would want to ask to get into that.
Okay.
Before we move over to that step, I do want to ask you, because we're talking about the ring crew, and I'm going to try my best to keep referring to them as ring crew, but this is, of course, is known as the ring boy scandal. Yeah. Do you think there was collusion by multiple parties to target these men? If so, given the gap in timelines of when these boys worked as ring crew, the geographical distances between them, do you believe it is likely they were able to work together to make these claims up?
Most of these kids are in the Northeast corridor. So, being by in the Northeast corridor, there's a good chance most of them got together in the same car with Mel Phillips. So he would pick up multiple kids on a weekend. Hey, I'm stopping in Philly, Baltimore, New York City. Okay, you want to come along for the ride? So you might do a whole weekend tour, depending on where the show started, depending on because remember, back in those days, it was 10 and 3. 10 days off, 10 days on, 3 days off. Okay? And if he could get you for the whole tour because you want summer school vacation or something like that, you went for the whole tour. You went for all 10 days, depending on where it started, where it finished. So was there a chance that these kids could have got together back then on the same tour? Absolutely. Right? Like I say, when I first met him, I one of the closest shows I could go to was Manchester, New Hampshire. There was always 2 kids in Manchester, New Hampshire, every show. So I got to know those guys on a monthly basis because, they would run Boston, Manchester, New Hampshire on a monthly basis almost. After that, now we started spreading out. Like I said, now I go to Portland, Maine. Then I went down to Providence, Rhode Island. So at these shows, other kids would show up. But it wasn't always, there would be a lot of times he would come up by himself because he'd only be up here for one show for Boston. Because it was Boston, New York, and Philly. I think Boston, Philly, New York, Philly, and Washington, D.C. were an East Coast once a month. No matter where else in the country they went, they hit those 4 towns once a month. So if he was coming into Boston on one day, if he going to New York the next day, Philly, and then we wouldn't always go because it'd just be that. Now, if he was doing a weekend where, let's say, Manchester and Boston, and he was coming in on Friday night, some kids would meet up with him on Friday night, do the weekend. After Manchester, they'd go home, see you later, bye. And a lot of times these kids would help with the ring crews. It's like, hey, I'm setting up the ring. I'm setting it up. And if there was some time and the agents weren't in the building, you want to screw around in the ring afterwards? Hey, let's go around. Listen, the first time I ever took a bump, okay, I thought it was hell.
No, I trust me. Trust me. I did like. I'm not going to go into too much personal information about it, but I did some training as far as not so much wrestling, but when we were there were wrestlers that were training in a boxing ring. And if you know the difference between a boxing ring and a wrestling ring, yeah, that you already know. They were teaching us how to take bumps because they thought that
floor is softer.
if you're teaching in a boxing ring compared to a wrestling ring, night and day. But they thought it would make their trainees tougher to be in a boxing ring. And damn it, if you don't know how to bump that first time, I almost threw up and people don't get it. Running the ropes, actual ring ropes on a boxing ring for a wrestling ring, that'll peel your flesh off.
Oh yeah.
But it's the idea of being in there with where my favorites were. When I was a kid growing up, I was a Jake the Snake fan. Jake the Snake was in this ring at some point. Oh my God.
What would you do if I told you Legion of Doom almost got me bit by the snake one day because they came up behind me. I'm holding it back. He has the cobra putting it in. Came up behind me. They went boom. And I'm like, oh,
what a rush.
Well, he's putting the snake in the damn bag. I'm like, you son of... And I'm like, and I looked around at the guys. Anytime you can do that to me, you can do it while he's putting the snake in the damn bag. They walked away laughing.
And that seemed very much like Hawk and Animal, yeah.
Oh, and those guys would go out of their way to drop their spikes on me. That's how they were ribbing me. Did I call that harassment? No. It was, you know what? It was them letting me fit in with them. It probably took a couple months for them to start doing that, but then they're like, yeah.
And the way you describe it, it feels like busting balls. I'm not, like I said, I would never deny that you feel that way. And I don't deny that, you had the time of your life because the way you talk about it, you still light up. When I look at you and talk about it, I'm back to being a kid watching my favorite wrestlers. On a personal side, when growing up, I was like 6 years old and I was watching WCW. It was my birthday and I saw Scott Levy, more popularly known as his ring name of Raven. And I was enthralled. That was my guy. And from the moment I watched him wrestle to the end, to all these years later, almost fucking 30 years later, getting to sit down with him and have a conversation, I still have that starry-eyed look as a kid. And I see that in you when you talk about Hawk and Animal, when you talk about the Legion of Doom, when you talk about Mel. And I get that. But that's where I'm going to go with this next question. I know, given your friendship with Mel, your age when you started, and the number of years it spanned, it would be extremely difficult to put yourself in a headspace to consider he may have had a side you didn't know about. Nobody wants to see someone they know and admire as a bad person or having a dark side. But when you take a step back and look at everything, the accounts of other ring attendants, wrestlers, John Arezzi, the documentation from the FBI that stated Mel's behavior was consistent with that of child predators, Vince's own comments that he previously let Mel go due to his odd nature of his relationship with children. Is there ever a moment where you think, wow, maybe something happened?
In 15 years of knowing that man, I never saw any criminal activity. Now, does he do some strange and unusual things because he had the little perks? Absolutely. Who doesn't have their little perks? But when it comes to doing something strange and unusual when it came to kids, no. He was a perfectionist. If I want to climb with that, no matter what he did in his life, it had to be perfect to the point to where he would drive himself obsessively. So to put it like this, let's just say you were in a car with him, right? And you broke wind. He wouldn't talk to you all day long. Wouldn't talk to you. You're done. You wouldn't talk to you. There was just things about him that you couldn't do certain things around him just because he didn't enjoy certain. He was such, like I said, such a perfectionist. Like you've heard the thing about people coughing around Vince, smoking around Vince. He was the same way. It was just like he had a quirky thing when it came to white people. He called us the others. Okay. The others. Because growing up in Philadelphia, in the part of Philadelphia he grew up in, and I'll tell you this right now, I sat outside in the car a couple of times outside his house, and back in the early 90s, I didn't know about racial tension. Racial tension to me back then, growing up in the city I grew up in, I didn't see it a lot. And I was saying to him, what the hell are you doing to me? And he's like, hey, we take out one, we're good. No, and I was like, are you serious? That was, listen, he did have a sense of humor. There was a couple of days I would see met his mother. And, I would call on the phone, had the home phone number, call on the phone, talk and stuff like that. And if you want to talk, a sweet Southern woman, okay, that's what she was. I don't know where she was from in the South, but she was a sweet Southern woman. Like I said, I think she's 104 years old right now. The last time I looked up, I sent a letter to the family, and I never got a response back. But I know his brothers, his sisters, and mother, I think, still live in the same property because I never got the letter back saying, oh, people moved. When I found out he was dead in 2012, I would have been all over this in 2012 if I had known he was dead. I made a promise never to talk about it while he was alive. And I asked him, why do you never want to talk to this while he's alive? He goes, because I'm ashamed of myself that I allowed it to ever happen to me. I should have never allowed it to happen. And I should have fought more. There'd be days I would see him cry for hours and hours and hours. Just wanted to be alone. Is a grown man who was 40 years old at the time. 42 years old at the time this happened. In one night, he had the whole world taken out of him. Now, he got a degree from Temple University. I can't remember what it was for, but he graduated from Temple. So he was very smart. He was a very smart man. He knew what he wanted to do in life, But to have people look at him and be demonized because, hey, this doesn't seem right about him. Today, yes, absolutely. You're right. Everything he did back then, today, people are like, oh my God, look at this. Okay? But back then, I'm going to say, as smart as he was a child at heart. And, every day he went to work, no matter what show he was on, the agents knew if he was in the building, everything was all set by the time they got there. He enjoyed his job, loved his job, and hated it. If you call wrestling fake, he'd want to punch you in the face. And he wasn't a big guy. And, the one thing I want to go with people and let them know that we had a falling out over money.
And that's the Rosen question. In the interview that you did have with Monty and the Pharaoh, you stated that Mel owed you money after your time with WWF.
Yep.
How did that come about, and how did it sour your friendship?
What had happened was because he got all his money taken by the IRS, I was able to get unemployment from WWE. And I didn't go through Linda. The person who was handling the claims at the time just happened. It came across her desk. And I got lucky. It came across her desk. He said, I'm going to approve this one. Okay, good. Done. Out of that unemployment money, I got something. He got attacked by the IRS. I lent him some money. 2 years later, I'm trying to buy cars. I need the money. I don't have it. Okay. But he had a wrestling ring. I said, okay. I'm going to take the ring and do some shows. He didn't approve. One night up in Manchester, New Hampshire, me and my buddy took the ring. We were doing the show. I can't for the life of me remember the name of the promoter. He was outside at the end of the show. He came over, said some comments to me, and I proceeded to, just so you could, punch him in his face and field goal him in his nuts. And my buddy, who was there, came in between us and broke us up. He goes, I cannot believe you're doing this for him right now. I said, no. I gave him every opportunity in the world to do the right thing with me. He's going to come up and do this to me because he can't pay me any other way. And you know what? I've had so much of it. I was like, I worked hard for money, and for him, giving them broken promises. Now, mind you, this was after we had done 3 shows at the end. So this was a night. I want to say this was the beginning of 1996, because the end of 1995, the timeline might be a little off. We did 3 shows in Canada. Oh, we went to Machias, Maine, Bathurst, New Brunswick, Canada, and Holton, Maine. If I'm right, those are the 3 towns. I was guaranteed a certain amount of money. I didn't make that kind of money that I was guaranteed. I was BS with it. So come to that, I said, I'm gonna start. I gotta start doing these shows, because the promoter. Can you take the ring and just do the shows? Can you take the? I said, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. I got to be loyal. It's his ring. I got to make sure, Well, then after about him attacking, after the promoter just kept calling me, and said, you know what? Let me call my buddy. I'll give you a call back. I call my buddy. Yeah, I can do a show with you. Okay, boom, done. So now that Manchester show. After that, I basically was able to take that ring. I made my money back because I was the sole provider for the dojo, which included Kurt Angle, Edge, Giant Silver, which to this day, he was high-fiving people from in the ring over the barricade, which to this day still bogs my mind how tall that guy was. I did enough shows to make my money back, and when I made my money back, I sold the ring. I ended up selling that ring to a buddy of mine, who ended up reselling it to a guy who now does shows with the same ring. And he's been doing shows with the ring for 20 years now. And and then the last time I saw Mel Phillips was July 12th, 2002. Once again, the date, I might be out by a couple of days. It was for a funeral for a very respected member of the WWE universe that the Ultimate Warrior mentioned in his Hall of Fame acceptance speech, James Miranda. He was the key merchandiser for WWE. He had passed away, and I went to Mel's house to let him know that Jimmy had passed away. I went down to the funeral, saw him at the funeral, and that was the last I ever saw him.
And how was that interaction? Because that was going to be my last question as far as this. I'm sure he was still sore. You did say you feel good him in the junk, so.
This was 6 years after the fact.
I would still be a little upset.
Oh, yeah.
You feel good to be in the junk.
I'll put you like this. Very little was said, and I had nothing more. I was actually with my ex-wife at the funeral. We went down. So there was a 2-day funeral. The first day was nothing but WWE employees. Second day was friends, family, stuff like that. And him being the guy who I went down to see, being a big Red Sox fan, the day when the Red Sox won the World Series, I drove back to his grave and put a Red Sox thing on for 2004. But other than that, I did not speak to Mel Phillips after that interaction in 2002. For the rest of his life, I did not speak. And we broke up a friendship over money. Do I regret breaking up the friendship over money? Yeah, because I never wanted to be like that. But when you get too many promises about I'm going to give it back, I'm going to give it back, I'm going to give it back, and by the time you're going to do that, now you end up with a family and stuff like that. And you're like, you know what? I can't involve my family in stuff that was there before my family came along. I can't drag them through that. So it was better for me just to part ways with them.
So I'll say this, and these are not questions that we had pre-prepared. This is me talking to you as I feel like we've had a great conversation at this point. You're very easy to talk to. You're a very passionate guy. I knew that from the fucking first moment I started talking to you. Can you tell me, does your guilt about the way your friendship ended have any impact on any of the way you feel about defending him as far as these allegations? Can you honestly say that?
Put it this way. If I kicked them in the balls yesterday, they'll be sitting here talking to you about them today. That's how I'll put it. Here's another one here's a good one for you. I could sit here and have a conversation with Lee Cole and not be angry with him because he never met Mel Phillips, admitted it himself. I can agree to disagree with him. I don't have to agree with you. I don't have to like you. Doesn't mean I'm going to lie about you. I'm not going to, it's not going to change my opinion about you. I have a thing to where if you man up to me, I'm good with that. Man up. Yeah, I'm still from the old school. My father was very man up. He was a very man up kind of guy. Like I told you, he was racist. Didn't like Mel when he first met him. Mel changed it for him. Mel changed it for my father. I grew up with Archie Bunker.
Fair.
Okay.
Fair.
He was born in the 40s. That's how he was raised. He was raised. My father couldn't speak English until he was 6 because he's French Canadian. Okay, and that's the way he was raised. But by seeing him being able to change for stuff like that, it made me know right then and there. Say, you don't hold grudges against people until they give you a reason to, and the only time you do is family. Everything else, you can work out anything else, just not family.
I think I get where you're coming from as far as that. My father was an immigrant as well. My father brought me up to believe that a handshake and a man's word is everything.
Before you go with that, up until contracts with WWE, that was Vince McMahon. You said to him, "Hey, I'll work for you." He shook out his hand because in his room, in his office, you probably seen videos. He had a desk and a phone. He didn't have paper. Your handshake to him was your word to him.
And I'm gonna make something clear. I need you to understand. Like when we do these documentaries, it doesn't go without. There's a piece every time we tell a story like this. This is something that I haven't put on this channel directly, but I'll say it clearly. I have a tattoo of Vince McMahon on my calf. It is something that I admired him as a businessman. I admired him as a person watching him growing up. And he is responsible for a lot of the joy that I had in life because I'm not going to say I grew up in a perfect home, but for the hours from Mondays and Fridays and Thursdays or whenever wrestling was on, our family was together and Vince McMahon was responsible for that. So this is what I'm getting at with that. Again, this is all off the cuff. No more questions. You've answered every question I had, but I'm talking.
All I have to do is tell you this. I worked with Shane. And I saw how Vince raised his son. As much as Shane could come on the road and be a punk kid, because hey, my dad's the owner. Shane also knew he had a place to where he couldn't let anybody go back and tell Vince, "Hey, you know what your son did last night?" He couldn't do nothing out of the extreme to where he wanted to get back to Daddy. Daddy wanted him to learn the business from the bottom up. So Shane himself had this like little fine line he had to walk. Sure, could he do a little bit things that maybe I couldn't do?
I talked to Raven about stuff like that. I know about him and his partying and shit like that. I get it.
But he knew if it got back to Daddy, that's the one thing I don't care what you do, don't let it get back to me. And Vince would always say, "I'm not going to treat you any different than any one of my wrestlers. I'm not going to treat you any different."
But there was also collateral damage, Gerard. Like again, if you can't tell me that, like say Raven, his career didn't suffer because of what he did with Shane back in the day and Vince's opinion of him afterwards. That's still his son. I will tell you, like, Gerard. Like, look, if you're you're older than me, but if you were my kid, I'm going to tell you right now, yeah, there's going to be some fucking favoritism. And going back to everything we've discussed. I 100% believe that you got to experience something that so many people wish they could have. You had the time of a life. You had the time of a lifetime. You sat there and you got to be around these guys. You got to get ribbed by the fucking Legion of Doom. You got to handle fucking Matilda. Yes, before we got on here, he showed us pictures of him holding Matilda. He'll bust it out.
Yep.
And by Matilda, I mean the British Bulldog's bulldog. That is a big deal. You got to roll with fucking Jake the Snake Roberts, my fucking hero back in the day. You got to do things that people will never get to experience. And there it is. Up a little more right there. Bottom corner right there. There is a young Gerard with a beautiful bulldog.
I just wish you could see the bulldog. And now I'll put you like this. I had to take him for his cleanings. I had it, and
How many people wouldn't give their left nut to do that now?
you know, it's the funny part is about that is okay. As we as fans, we say, "Oh, I'd like to do this. I like to do this. I like to do this." But when you get the chance to do it, so few actually do it because you go from fantasy to reality and say, "Hey, this kind of lifestyle ain't for me." You're on the go, 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 go.
But you're doing something you love, and that's the thing where you and I think you and I can agree on. I don't know if we talked about it in the actual recording, but hell, you told us a story about you, Macho Man, and Miss Elizabeth, and I thought that was endearing. I thought that was beautiful about you driving and how he trusted you, and that goes back to what we've talked about on this channel, where I made it very clear after we talked about Ashley Mazzaro and everything that happened with her. And you know, the stuff that Vince was involved with, and it's been proven. This is something no one can deny because it's been proven as far as Nancy Argentina and Rita Chatterton and everything that's happened. I think that truly Macho Man, I think Randy Poffo was trying to protect Elizabeth and he wanted to keep her away. And I think you agreed with me as far as that. He was never a monster. He was a man who loved his wife and she was the most important thing in the world to him.
Well, I'll put you like this. If you think about it in these lines today, okay, would she be in the business today? No. She wouldn't be in the business today because of how things are nowadays. Back then, it was something new and different.
But I think she was ahead of her time, though.
That's what I'm saying. She wouldn't be in it today. It was something back, and a woman to be around like her, who couldn't wrestle, okay? And I'll give you like this. Think about it like this. You go from Miss Elizabeth to Sherry Martel. Talk about totally opposites. And that's what made it.
But I also think that was part of that heel character for him. Like he needed that. He needed the opposite of the elegance and the beauty and the innocence that was Elizabeth to go. And no knocking Sherry Martel. She's a queen. She deserves everything. She's fucking amazing. Like what she did from WCW with Harlem Heat, her in ECW, and all the way to now when she was with the franchise Shane Douglas, who again also spoke out about some of the things we've talked about.
He's another one who I would love to say to him, Troy, where were you when this was going on? You said you were on a plane. The one thing we didn't indulge into, and I want you to indulge into,
yeah, we'll go there, man. We're off the script now. We can go where we got to go.
All these wrestlers who claimed they saw these guys do this stuff and waited to speak up till either after they were dead or fired from WWF. Why? Why didn't you speak up then? Because I'll tell you this right now, Troy. The time I met, I was able to work with him too. The first time when he first came to WWF. Okay.
You're talking about when he had the professor gimmick or whatever the hell.
No. This was before then. Before he even became Dean Douglas. Okay. So he had a run before he came to that where he left to go be a school teacher.
Wow, that makes more sense now. The Dean Douglas. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So and he was a babyface his first run. The second time he came back as Dean Douglas. Why wouldn't you have immediately reported that? All these guys who claim they saw Mel, I don't want to lose my spot. I don't want to get in trouble. It's like you're reporting sexual activity against children across state lines. Because by what you guys say, if you're on a plane, you're flying probably across state lines. My bigger thing about that is not the sexual activity, sexual harassment against kids. You're talking about, like I said, you're going across state lines for this, which maybe some states might end up being that prostitution for the purpose of illegal activity. Why wasn't this ever brought up? Why wasn't this ever part of the settlement? Why not part of the settlement? Why wasn't it even part of the charges? Because like I said, Tom claims it happened in Connecticut. Where did he file the lawsuit? Why
To
do
be
you
fair,
call
that
it?
none of this stuff went to court. Although there were a lot of allegations, there were never charges. And this is the thing that I get. And again, it's my job to play devil's advocate. It's my job to pose those questions to you and ask. So, as far as that, well, what if the reason they didn't say anything? You know better than anybody. It was a very, very, very tight knit group. It was an old boys club, and maybe they didn't come out. Because what happens if you're that guy who whistle blows on Vince?
Let me ask you a question. If you're the guy who whistleblows, you go directly to Vince. Okay, you go directly to Vince, because I'm going to tell you this right now. The same way he was on Donahue when he was saying, I did not know about this. I did not know this was going on. How do we know that's not the truth? How do we know was not going on? And he said and remember when he was on one of them shows, I think it was Larry King or something like that, he goes, these individuals do not work for me anymore. How quickly did he get rid of them?
Well, to be fair, he told Bruno that Mel Phillips never worked for him, that he was basically hired labor. But you and I both know that's not true. He worked for Vince.
That's where you're wrong.
Oh,
Mel was an independent contractor.
I thought he was. I thought he was actually.
He was an independent contractor. He got paid for every job he did. Somebody who was not an independent contractor was on salary. He had no salary. He got paid for everything he did. The thing, he was an independent contractor hired to WWF. So basically, he was, if you want to put it, talent.
Say it again.
They paid him a settlement.
But they paid him a settlement.
Right. They paid him a settlement because basically like this, they gave him that settlement as a way to, I want to say, so he would not talk on his own. And when I asked him, I said, why did you agree to this? I could have walked away with nothing. They could have gave me nothing. I said, really? He goes, yeah, they could have gave me nothing. He goes, but by doing it this way, they gave me this. I said, this amount? Yeah. And so when I looked at the amount, and I tell people that, and so he cashes the check. And I want to say a month later, give or take a couple weeks. So we take a trip down to Florida because he's going to go buy a car. But before we take the trip, he comes in my house. He has a bag of $70,000 in cash. My brother-in-law took a picture with the $70,000 in cash. I don't know if it's still around or not. And then when we get back from Florida, after he bought it, he went down. He got a Chrysler New Yorker. Paid cash for it, obviously. And I think by the time we got back, the IRS had zapped him. So that $70,000 is all he saw of the settlement. But he was able to transfer all of his, because he was a landlord. That's why he had the kind of bank account he had. He transferred all of his properties and stuff like that to a family member's name. And that family member ended up stabbing him in the back. He never got his properties back. So he, in the course of 2 years, went from having a very good lifestyle. He was living in a hotel in Hudson, New Hampshire. And when I left him in 2002, that's where we were still living, in a hotel in Hudson, New Hampshire. It was a extended stay hotel. It was probably dirt cheap. And so because he probably paid his rent on time, I know he was taking odd jobs, work a day and stuff like that. He had a house at one point, and he just couldn't pay the rent for the house because he just couldn't get the money and stuff like that. That's where he had the ring. And once he moved into the hotel, that's when I took over the ring. But yeah, he lived in Hudson, New Hampshire.
So I don't think you're a bad guy, Gerard. I think that you have a belief, you feel a certain way. Like I said, I feel the passion in you. I feel like you 100%. I still, because not just because of the testimonies, but like the FBI analysis, a lot of that really does sway me one way or the other.
There's one other thing I want to let you know. There was a story about a guy with a videotape.
Yeah.
His name was Maloof. So, after I did the Monty and Farrow show, I went and met Mr. Maloof at his card show. Asked him if he still had the tape. Yep. I said, John, did you really go and tell all these people all this? He goes, I never said nothing bad about Mel. I said, then why is it online? He goes, I never said nothing bad about Mel. I said, can I get a copy of the tape? He hasn't given me the copy of that tape yet. Because he goes, it's in my basement somewhere. Then I asked him for the copy of it. So it's funny to where All these people go out and say all these things, but when I confront them about, hey, where's the stuff? Now they shut down because there is still one living person who was involved. Pat died, Terry died, Mel died, Tom died. When Tom died, Lee Cole thought the story died with him. Oh, there's nobody here to disclaim. There's nobody there that can prove me wrong anymore. Nobody there that can challenge my story. When I first got in touch with Monty and the Pharaoh, I think they're like, what? There's still somebody alive? I think they had to do their due diligence and check and make sure I was who I said I was, just like David Bixenspan when I first got in touch with David. I will say this. I wish his family had gotten back in touch with me. I really do. I that's the one thing I wish. And if they had gotten back in touch with me and I could have just said, hey, I'm just trying to defend your brother. Your brother, your son, your uncle, that's what I'm trying to defend. I'm not trying to defend him any other way. Because at the end of the day, that's what you want. Like, there's always, in every family, there's always going to be an outliner. Lee Cole is the outliner of that family. He almost moved away like he lives in a witness protection thing because, he went from New York to Amarillo, Texas, which is about as far away from two things that you can be. And I'm sorry that he lives in your state. Okay? And he's still a Yankees fan. That's the other thing I'm sorry about. But that guy, when he comes out on his thing and says, I got all this information, And the one thing that gets me lately is the thing when he talks about Janelle Grant. Now, when it comes to Janelle Grant with me, I say this. It was two consenting adults, number one. Okay? And the one to me, the thing with Janelle Grant comes across as the hooker who doesn't get the money from the John. That's what it comes across to me.
And I'll be honest with you. We did our first video. We talked about actual victims. All right. And I truly believe they were. When it comes to her, I'm not sitting here. I'm not going to, and me and my wife have talked about it. I do believe it started as something consensual. It evolved and it got to a dark place. Do I think that Vince is a monster? In my opinion, yes. I've seen too much. I've gone too far to see things. I understand you have a different opinion of him. Great. But you're making valid points. And I think that at some point, this is vengeful from her. I feel that. I'm not sitting here going to say that she's absolutely at fault. I think that, again, there were at one point two consenting adults, but it went too far. As far as John Laurinaitis coming out and saying the things he said, because that man dropped dime, as he was trying to save his own ass. What the beauty of that, though, is that the truth about Ashley Mazzaro came out, and that's all I could ask for as far as them finally coming out and saying, yes, we did know about an incident that happened overseas. I can be happy about that. We'll see how this Janelle Grant thing plays out. I think there's a lot of stuff that it sucks because I think you're going to understand this better than most talking to you in this. Like, we've almost gone fucking 2 hours, and I thank you for being so generous with your fucking time.
I'd go on another 2 if it meant that.
and I get that, but yeah. I think you'll get this better than anybody. I am at my heart. Wrestling has been part of my life for almost 40 years. It has been the constant as far as my passions and things I love, and I know they say, don't meet your heroes. Don't go behind that velvet rope. But I did, and I got to see things. And then me and my wife, who's also a wrestling fan, and she was at WrestleMania 17 with her brother when they were in Houston. And one of the bonding things about.
By the way, that was WrestleMania 7.
Okay, brag all the fucking what you, Gerard. You got to hold the damn bulldog, fucker. But what I'm saying is, it breaks my heart to watch these titans of men and everything that comes out. And I don't want that for other people. That's why and I use this quote a lot, but if you've ever watched the Batman movie with Bane, The Dark Knight Rises, I tell people, don't you wish you had someone who's willing to plunge their hands in the filth? Well, I have plunged my hands and seen enough filth. I do it because I think there should be justice for some people, but I'm not going to sit here and say that everybody's fucking innocent because they're not. There are people here that want to make a dime. Maybe there is some validity. Maybe there are people that want to fuck Mel Phillips over because as good as he was to you, he could have pissed off some people. Maybe he was the monster that people say he was. Maybe that is just going to be the same about Garvin. Maybe that could be said about Pat. I don't know. You're right. I wasn't there, but neither are some of these other people, and they don't have the right to sit there. That's why you're here to convey and defend them, because they're not here to fucking defend themselves. I do appreciate you coming forward with that.
Well, the thing a lot of people got to understand, like I've said it before, and I say, we live in a world where there's a lot of closed-minded people, okay? And I know that in your state, you guys live in a very Republican state. You have a lot.
You and I should kill each other because I'm super conservative too.
Now, I live in a very liberal state, okay?
That's another word for wrong. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah, so that you know, there's an election coming up, and I'm voting for the person who's going to put more money in my pocket.
Good.
In a Democratic state, just so you know, and I'm in a Democratic state. I'm a union member, and I'm going against all of that because 4 years ago I had more money in my.
Stop making me like you, Gerard. You're gonna fuck this up, damn it.
Okay, they'll put it in the world. My wife is from Puerto Rico. It's another way, and 4 years ago, 4 years ago she voted for the other way, and now she wants to vote for the guy who'll put more money in her pocket.
Well, look, my father is from Mexico, and he told me recently, and my father sounds like Tony Montana. Mijo, I kind of need Papa Trump back in office because I missed the money in my damn pocket.
So, but in a case like, when I come on and I want to talk to people about this, it's not so much that I want people to say, hey, he was an angel. No, Terry and Pat in the wrestling world weren't angels. In life, they might not have been angels. Okay, who is? You know, who is? Everybody's going to have skeletons in their closet. But your skeletons are supposed to die with you. Good, bad, or indifferent, your skeletons are supposed to die with you. To keep dragging dead people through mud, but then complain about, like I said, now because somebody wants to drag you through mud, but because the other people can't defend themselves, you think it's okay. That's where that got to stop. To keep, and the thing is to profit off that denying, because like, oh, don't talk about this person, but I'm going to talk about these people over here, and then to be the hypocrite to do that. That's just not fair to the people that you. If you want to go on. Because trust me, you know as well as I do. If this guy wanted to spend 6 weeks of just talking and not shutting off his computer about Vince McMahon, he could have 6 weeks of just talking, not saying about Vince McMahon. We all know this. Okay? If you can go on and on and on just talking your stuff about Vince McMahon and all the stuff that he's ever been accused of doing without being found guilty. But everybody who ever files cases against this guy always do it in a state other than in Connecticut. Why do they do it in a state other than Connecticut? It's New York. The whole thing with Janelle is going through New York. When the incident happened in Connecticut, if I'm right, it's Connecticut, right? Put it this way, other people can construe. We had a relationship, friends. Anything other than that, we did not have. I had girlfriends and stuff like that, so I'd go on my way and stuff like that. He met my kid. He met my son one time, and other than that, that was it. And you know, I'll put it by the time I had already gotten into the thing with the money and stuff like that, because my personal life was changing so much, I was actually starting to pull away anyway. But whenever a wrestling show came up that he goes, hey, can you do it? I never said no to a wrestling show. Never. Okay. Because I enjoyed the business so much. Never said no to a wrestling show. So he could always count on me even after. And we're doing a show one time up in, I want to say it was up in New Hampshire. And Jim Myers was the main event, or he was the main attraction. And he sat down and had a discussion with Mel for an hour. about how the man had to take care of his company. It was nothing. It was never nothing personal. It was all business. And hearing it come from Jim Myers, it meant something to him. Anybody who Mel ever had interactions with after that never looked down on him. It was never personal to them. It was never. Vince, to everybody who we ever had a conversation with after that, we did shows. It was always Vince did what was best for Vince's business. That's all he did. And Mel understood it. It broke his heart that Vince never called him back. But by the time he could call him back, time had passed so much. It's like, hey, he was already replaced. It's like, with every company, once you find out that person is replaceable, why bring him back? And especially when you can bring somebody in who's doing that job, who's half the, maybe a quarter of the cost, because he was probably averaging $200 a year. I'm going to say give or take $200 a year. So, I mean, just I know.
And that time, and I wanted to, because people made comments earlier in the video we had done. They were making $100. Like that was big money back then. That was a big fucking deal.
They said $100. Who was making $100? No. So when they did it, it's clarifying that. So on a good night, I could have made $100 if I'm doing robes and if I'm doing robes and timekeeping. So I'd have to do certain things. But the normal pay was between $2 and $50. So if you're doing robes, jackets, and music, $20 to $50 per each thing. So if you're doing robes and the music, you might got $100 because depending on the agent, the normal was $20 to $50 per extra job you were doing. Okay, so if you were lucky to do all three of them, you can make $100 to $150, right?
And that's big money at the time, right? Like that's big fucking money.
Now, that flyer I showed you earlier about being on the booking sheet.
Yeah.
For those 8 shows, he walked out with $18,000 for 8 shows.
Shit.
So but now mind you, he went there. He went to the buildings. He said he got everything done. And they allowed him to be that way because they knew if Mel was on the card, they didn't have to find anything else to do. They knew he would go in, talk to security and stuff like that. So WWE now has security guards that go, a head of security that goes in and talks to the building about it. They have the agents. They have the production guys and stuff like that. That was one job. Mel, that's all he did. So he was Terry Garvin's basically assistant. He was Terry Garvin's assistant, what his job was. So he was the road. Nobody was going to tell him no on the road. He would be the guy that goes around, and his bosses were the road agents. And that's what he did.
But you get how frustrating that could be for someone who says that he's an independent contractor, which I get because the wrestlers are ultimately independent contractors. But then Vince to have that basically backdoor to say, well, he was never actually an employee. He was occasional labor. How fucked is that?
Put it this way, okay? That's basically along the lines of saying Mel got no health insurance from WWF unless he was injured on the job. Like with any company, whether you're an independent contractor or an employee, you get injured on the job, they're going to pay for you. Even the independent wrestlers, they get injured in the ring, WWE takes care of their medical 100%. You cut your finger at home, you're on your own. It's not like a Major League Baseball player. So if you crash your car into a wall, you get your salary and the stuff still done by the Major League Baseball. No. Okay? So when Vince was talking about Mel, Vince would fly into a town, have to go to the show. Guess who was his chauffeur? Mel. Mel would drive 3 people. Pat, Vince, and Kevin Dunn. Those are the 3 people that were in the car. Don't you think, and this is for you and your wife, after 32 years, other than this kid, Sean, let's just say less than 5 kids have come out? 5 in 32 years? I might even be
There one is too many.
But I'm saying is, though, but look who was doing the interview. And my saying is, look at who's doing the interview. Now, if that's a third party doing the interview who doesn't have nothing to do with it, let's just say you had nothing to do with the scandals at all. If somebody had reached out to you, somebody had reached out to Monty DeFaro, okay? Nobody stuff.
Shout out to them, by the way, because they do a fan. Look, I didn't know who they were at first. I kind of thought they were campy, but damn, they do a damn good program.
Well, to put it like this, Monty is kind of upset with my interview from Joe Whataday. And I said to him, I said, I apologize if I came across as not the way I should have come across, because I was trying to be respectful to him. My respect aspect is gone. As you can, I said to myself, today I'm going to be more laid back in my answers. I'm going to be, more. I'm not going to be uptight, because I don't want to end up saying something to where it can be misconstrued.
Fair, you could tell that you were nervous in that first interview because you hadn't done it before.
I had a stack of notes, and I still didn't get to tell a lot of the stuff because of time. Okay, there's you know this. There's only so much shit you can put in a time block.
Did Gerard just cuss?
and that's the key here. There's only so much you can do in that time block, and to try and go over something that happened 30 plus years ago in an hour and a half time, there's no way to do it.
The beauty of our program, we want the whole story out there, and that's, like I said, what I'm getting to. Is there anything you haven't talked about? Is there anything that you want to, just like I said, this is your platform as well. Like, we appreciate the time. Don't get me wrong, but this is your time.
I'll put it like this, okay? For you guys' sake, when this comes out, I don't know when you guys are going to do this. Just let me know when you're going to do it, because I'll get some people to watch it for you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah. The one thing I want people to know is when you come out with this, Lee Cole thanks you for coming up. On your next one, when you come out with it, he's going to probably be shitting on you.
I could give two fucks.
Right, okay? He's going to want to come on and talk with you. Now, the perfect thing for him, okay, you want to come on? That's fine. We're going to bring him back on with you, though.
No, and I agree, because I'm not going to sit here and tell me if you agree with me or not. Sure. I'm not going to let the man come on and bash you, because technically you haven't bashed him. You've given your opinion. You may not like Lee Cole, whatever it may be, but my issue is he had the opportunity to come forward. He saw that you reached out to us. Well, no, I'm not talking about just you. I'm talking about him personally, saw that you extended the offer to come on and speak with us.
That's what I'm saying. 3 times. 3 times he's had with Monty, with Joe Whataday, and you. He's had 3 times. And he admitted on your show, in the clips, you're welcome on my show anytime. He's never contacted me about it, and I've been told he was gonna. He hasn't.
I want to put this for anybody watching this now. It was a literal fucking email. Hi, I'm Gerard. Hi, this is when we can do it. I said, can you do it this week? You said no. You said, I can do it here. And you were a man of your word. We said at this time, motherfucker, you were here waiting for me. I had just literally woken up. So, there. Look, say what you want. You may not agree. And if you're watching this, you may not agree with everything that Gerard says, but he's a man of his word. He's been here from the jump. He hasn't, and he sticks by his stuff. Again, we don't agree. Fuck, again, you're liberal, which is another word for wrong, and I'm conservative. But we're sitting here having a decent, civil conversation.
I never said I was liberal.
We come from a liberal.
I live in a liberal state. I didn't say I was liberal. Don't. I put it this way, okay? I did vote for Obama once. Okay.
So did I.
You get a pass for the first time. Okay. For George Bush Jr. once.
To be fair, I was kind of forced to. He's W. He is from Texas. I kind of, if we don't do it, we lose our boots. So I had to.
Are you a Rangers fan or an Astros fan?
Don't start with me. I'm a Rangers fan. I'm from North Texas.
So that's why too, because he ran the.
That's right. And he got in that fist fight while he was a Ranger. Damn it.
If you haven't seen, in my back right here, if you don't mind me standing up.
Go ahead.
I just have to show you.
You make me sick, Gerard. You make me sick.
Well, no, if that's the case.
He wants me to fight him. That's what he wants.
Then I had to show you this one, too.
Oh, don't. Oh, I can deal with that, though. I do like the Celtics. I was a Larry Bird fan growing up.
So, hey, listen. Okay, that's sorry.
I'll say is this, and like I said, I've been straightforward with you from the jump. We've been 100. Will you put that shit away? We are going to do the part 2 because we have to finish what we started as far as the documentary. And again, I want you to know that everything that we do put out there is based on the testimonies of fact. And I think that you're the only person that's gotten it. Nothing that we've put in a documentary form has ever been based on our opinion. It's been based on what we've been given from the facts from people that have put it out there. It's hard because, again, I am a wrestling fan. I watched Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson as their characters as the Stooges. I watch these guys, and the stuff that these people are saying, it breaks my heart, because if it's true, they are monsters. If it's not, they are being vilified as monsters. So
I'll put it like this. The night that I did that thing for Kurt Angle, guess who the agent in charge was that night?
I already know.
Know who?
Pat.
Pat was the agent in charge that night. He came up purposely for that. Me and him had an hour-long conversation. Do you think I'm going to sit there and have an hour-long conversation with a guy? You think I'm going to sit there and have that kind of conversation with a guy who got really...
No, I don't believe you would. I don't think that I don't think that you would be that kind of person. You don't seem like that kind of person. But at the same time, like...
But me and Pat had a nice conversation. We talked about Mel and stuff like that. We talked about the business. And, to have that kind of guy talk to you, a guy with that kind of mind talk to you in a human kind of mind, not a business kind of mind, it was an honor.
I can actually like get that, because I had a 2-hour conversation with Raven. That was my guy. One of the greatest minds I think that this business has. They wasted, and he wasted himself due to his decisions and the things he did. And if someone were to tell me tomorrow that Raven did this to people, or essayed somebody, it would bother the fuck out of me.
Have you ever heard Bully Ray talk about Pat Patterson?
Oh yeah.
What's he say? He goes, you go your way, this way, and then Pat Patterson's way. And Pat was always the middle ground. And usually his way worked because he just had that mind for it. And, in every business in this world, there's people you're going to run into that just have the mind. In my company, they tell me all the time, if I had 40 of you, I wouldn't need 60 guys. And I say, listen, and they say, why do you work like that? I said, because you're paying me to work that way.
Right. You're damn right.
You know what? As long as that signature for that check is still going into my bank, I'll do whatever you guys need me to do. That's it. I don't own this company. And think about it. Pat didn't own that company, but you know what? Vince paid him a crap load of money to do what he did to make his company look.
I agree with you in the sense that, yes, work ethic, I can't tell you that the guy had a bad work ethic. And two, you can never deny that Pat Patterson was one of the greatest minds this business ever knew.
Nobody ever talks about this guy's work ethic. Nobody ever talks about his work ethic.
I've been told about his work ethic, and the people that talk about Pat Patterson say all these wonderful things about his work ethic. Here's the problem.
No, I'm talking about in a bad way. Nobody ever talked about his work.
No, his work ethic is amazing.
Yeah.
Will never deny the man's work ethic. What I will say is, you said it earlier, and I'm going to use your words against you here. We don't know what skeletons people had in their closet, and maybe at that time things were where they were. But it is my job as someone who I consider as an honorable and honest journalist, not somebody who's on a dirt rag and not somebody who's trying to bullshit somebody, to present the facts of what is given. And it's all I can do.
You got to go wrestling terms. You got to say you're a broadcast journalist. If you're going to disappoint Joe Bobby Heenan like that, I don't know what to tell you.
You know what? You sound like one of those Mongoloids coming around driving a Plymouth. I might have to go there and smack you around until my hands swell shut.
Listen here, humanoid. I ain't going to put up. Hey, listen. That's why I'm saying when people talk to me about this stuff like that, and I've had some people who will try and get on me. It's like, you don't allow me to be. Some people didn't allow me to be me. As you can see, I'm not the person who I was on all the other shows. But I had to learn from one of those shows to loosen up a little bit, and now you see what it can be like when I'm loosened up.
Well, that's the thing. I want you to know that, again, I want to bring an end to this conversation, but when we end it, I don't want you to leave, because I want to have a conversation with you outside of the recording.
Yep.
This is a very heavy subject. Though we've made points, we've had lightness. You're not on trial here.
Nope.
I want to make it very clear that Gerard is simply someone who's expressing his thoughts, what he saw, and how things happened to him. And you're a brave sumbitch for coming on here and doing it.
When I went down to New York City, I was supposed to go into the grand jury. The day before I was supposed to go into the grand jury, before I even started my deposition, he had already admitted he'd lied.
To who?
The grand jury, the people doing the grand jury investigation.
Tom or Lee?
Tom had already admitted he lied. In September or October of 1993, when I went down to do my deposition, when I got in there and said, listen, we have to keep going because it's already done. But Tom, my attorney, so the attorney who was hired, they had already gotten Tom to admit that he had lied about it.
Can you validate that?
I can't, because I was told by the WWF attorneys, whoever they got hired by, because he had already admitted in the thing that he lied. Now, he's going to say, oh, he was coerced into lying. He's going to say he signed a statement saying he was coerced into lying. That's what he's going to come out and say.
But to be fair, if you look back, Tom was coerced to actually go forward because of his brother.
Yeah, that's all. So he's coerced to go before because of his brother. Then he say, "Oh, I was coerced into lying." So if he was coerced into lying because of his brother, that makes it even worse. Now, my other thing is, and you're going to understand this one. So I texted a guy today who I knew worked there in 1990. What was your salary in 1990? $20,000. Okay. So where the frick did Tom Cole come across as asking for $750,000 when he had lost his job for a year? These guys were making $20,000 a year. These were full-time ring crew guys. Okay? And the guy responded to me, he goes, well, Joey Morello was making $16,000. And a couple of years later, we went up to 20. I said, so if Joey was making 16, you guys both got up to 20. My thing is now is, where did the $750,000 come off of? That's every ring crew person, okay? And that's some of the boys combined.
You think it was a payday that it was initiated by...
Because think about it. Because how many times you heard Lee Cole say, if I had been in that room, if I had been in that room, if I had been...
He did, you know, it is on record of him saying that his brother made a mistake, that he,
right.
You know...
If I had been in that room, he wouldn't have done it.
I get frustrated with it because if you listen to anything Tom said, he just wanted his job back.
Yep. And
I think there's something to that.
But he sucked at it. That's why he didn't. That's the reason why he got let go, because he wanted to be one of the boys. If he had just been a ring crew person, it would have been different. But he tried to be one of the boys. Now, let's just say, for instance, everything that he said was correct that happened at Terry's house. That's what I'm going to say. Okay? Why did he walk away from that house? Why did he stay there till the next morning to get a ride back?
He also said that he waited in the van because he didn't have a ride back.
He slept overnight in the van. My ass, guess where my ass would have been? I would have walked right out of there. I would have walked to the friggin' police.
But it's clear that you and he are different people. And it was bad weather.
But he was from New York. So he was from Yonkers, New York. So guess what? He had the same kind of weather I have, only it's 200 miles difference.
Like I said, he said bad weather, but in the same breath, I sitting here having this conversation. I can tell you right now that people are different. You're different than Tom. I'm different than you. It is what it is.
I ain't walking nowhere in the heat. I'll tell you that.
But to be fair, he made a decision. And I think that he was afraid of losing his job. I think that he said, you know what? I still want to work here. I don't think he got upset until next day when they said, I got nothing for you.
And the thing about that is when I hear all of that and stuff like that, right? Mel Phillips, technically, okay, didn't have the resources to hire and fire. He could suggest. Now, because here's the thing.
But it wasn't Mel that let him go. It was Terry.
And he said, but Mel, he heard it from Mel that he was getting let go.
Yes, he did.
Okay? My thing was this, okay? When I was getting brought on full time, Now, mind you, up until just about a month before I walked out the door, I was an independent contractor doing ring crew. I was not an employee yet because my age did not allow me to be an employee. A month beforehand, Mel comes to me and said, I got a surprise for you. I'm like, what? He opened up the booking sheet. My name was on the booking sheet for all of March. Every town I was going to be in. Terry's putting you full time. Terry's putting you full time. I was going full time the day I walked out the door. I was going to have a salary and everything like that. I was going to be.
And you let it go because of loyalty.
So for people who want to say things about me, I walked away from a full-time job salary because of my belief.
Do you ever regret that?
I miss the enjoyment of the business. I never miss being away from home. Like I said, my buddy of mine who I talked to, he goes, to sleep in your own bed every night with your kids. He goes, I'd give this up in a minute if I could have done that too. He goes, you work the same hours you would have worked here, but you get to be in your own bed every night. I said, you're damn right. And he worked for the company a very long time. When COVID hit, they got rid of him. Once COVID hit, I still have my job. He goes, that's being part of a union. That's not being part of, and that's unfortunately the wrestling business. You don't have a union in the wrestling business.
And at some point, I would love to sit down and have a conversation about that. But
oh, yeah. I'll put it like this: if the wrestling business could have what any one of the 4 sports could have because of the popularity, I think they could or should. But it would have to be a wage scale kind of thing where you can't have like baseball where they claim they're a union, but nobody gets paid the same.
No,
you have a minimum. As long as you meet the minimum, you can pay anybody whatever you want. I can one of those. Give me the minimum check. I'll work the minimum for 10 years.
I will say this: we keep talking about you keep saying shit that brings me back in. Damn it! I keep trying to get out. It keeps pulling me back in, Tur.
You live near a lake.
You have been fantastic as far as conveying your narrative and how you feel. This is a very dark subject. We've been able to make some light of it and be kind of humorous about stuff, but I do want to thank you for coming in and talking to me about it. Are you going to say something else? Damn it! What?
This is what I'm going to say. The last thing I'm going to say about this, okay? So you guys so I can be fair with you. Do I believe Pat Patterson was blackballed on this? Absolutely. Locker room. If you ever played sports, locker room stuff stays in the locker room. Okay. If he used any kind of job against somebody, and obviously he didn't use it against Tom because Tom, what they say, allowed Pat to get his job back. So Pat's name should have never been run through the mud in the first place. Okay? The things that go on with Terry Garvin, I never witnessed him do it to me or anybody else. Could Terry have had skeletons in his closet that I didn't know about because I wasn't around him enough? Absolutely. But I'm going by my personal experience and the way he conveyed himself to a lot of the other guys. Okay? We all knew if Terry was drinking, don't be around Terry. Because he would say some stupid shit. Okay? We all been there. You get drunk, you say the wrong things to the wrong people. Not everybody takes it the same way. Depending on who you are, you brush it off and you laugh about it. You walk away, you go your own way. Okay? Terry never propositioned me in any way, shape, or form. He would send me places to do job, like to Hawaii and stuff like that. And people would say, and other guys on the rink would say, why are you sending this guy, not us? When you work like him, you can go to these places. That kid busts his ass. I'm going to send him every time. And then as far as Mel goes, I'm going to say the same thing I say about Terry. What he did before I knew him, I cannot speak on. I can speak on what he did when I was around him. And being that I was around him for the better part, I'm going to say, of 6 years straight from 1990 to 1996 to where we had a falling out, and I never saw him do anything with any kid illegally other than try and have a good time. He would sometimes have kids go on trips, and he would pay for the whole trip. After we both left, We went down to Tampa, Florida. There was 4 of us. He took care of the whole trip. He went when he bought the car and stuff like that. We all drove back up to Glens Falls, New York. There was 4 of us.
And I don't think that you have actually done anything as far as like you said. When it comes to Pat and Terry, you've made it very clear your relationship wasn't with them like it was with Mel.
No.
And that's what I'm saying. And I want to clarify. Your defense mainly has been because of your time with Mel. But
Yes.
You've also been very clear in the fact that if they had done something in the past before they knew you didn't know about it.
Nope.
And your time with you was
But
different.
then it carry over, which, like I say, a lot of these things carry over to people. You know, a shoplifter is going to keep shoplifting, and he's going to go for more because he's not getting caught. Hey, if I got away this time, what can I do next time? What can I do next time? And the same thing to me when it comes to pedophilia. You're going to keep going until it comes to a point of, hey, how much more can I push this until I get caught? Now, if everything that was going on with these guys to say, after they got let go, yeah, they couldn't use the company anymore. But that doesn't mean they would stop being the people they are. Because if it's a disease. It's a disease to be able to want to do this to people. So why didn't it continue? Why haven't we heard anybody come out after they got let go and say, hey, they were still doing this to me then? It's never been that way in 32 years. And that's my biggest thing when it comes to that. If you're holding somebody's job over your head because you're doing sexual things and stuff like that, and if it's done out of a drunken state, you don't even realize you said it. And come the next morning, you let somebody go because they dismiss your advance.
But again, that's giving him an out.
No, I'm not. Let me finish, okay? Because that's like that. Is what you did wrong? Absolutely. But you correct the mistake, right? Do I believe it happened that way? No, because I didn't see nothing of anybody else that came along worked that way. Now I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you a story about this, okay? There was a guy that Terry took a liking to. I don't know if it was sexual or not like that, so don't get me on that. He was from Boston. And everybody would ask, why is this freaking idiot around? One time we were doing a show in Mobile, Alabama. He flew down to Boston, missed the tour bus, flew back to Boston instead of getting a cab to the show. That was the last we ever saw of him because he couldn't be protected. And we were all like, what the heck? And so the thing is Terry liked his extracurricular activities, his drinking and whatever he might have dabbled in the yabba dabba a little bit. But from what I never heard of, it never turned into the other stuff. If he could find a smoking friend, he found a smoking friend. Find a drinking friend, find a drinking friend. But I never saw it go to the other route. And nobody ever said it went that other route. A lot of people would say, oh, he likes to smoke and drink. Oh, so what are you around for? Oh, because I like to smoke and drink. You know, back in the early 90s, that was something to where a lot of people hid when it comes to the smoking part of it. You know, the smoking, the yabba dabba. And that was Terry's thing, to where Terry tried to find the good in everybody because he wanted to be friends with everybody because he wanted to party, if that's what you want to call it. And by he wanted to party, I think it put him in precarious positions to where he might have said some things too roughly, but I don't think he did anything. If you get my point.
I get what you're saying. It doesn't make it right. Like you said, it doesn't make it right.
Doesn't make it right.
You don't know how other people but you don't know where other people are going to take that. Right. Like, I'm sorry. If someone comes up to me and says, hey, I want to suck your dick, I'm going to be like, no.
Right.
And I'm going to be like, yo, man, this motherfucker trying to tell me he wanted to suck my dick.
No. Hey, I got some gibbering. You want to smoke some gibbering weed to drink with me? Even some people can take that offense too.
Absolutely.
Hey, I'm 51 years old. I've never touched a joint in my life. I when I put it this way, I was 10 years old. I had open heart surgery, and the doctor said to me, "Hey, Stay away from smoking. I've never touched. I would have a cigar if I was on a golf course. About close to almost 20 years now, I had a case of they had to do a check on my lymph nodes to see if I had something swollen. They said, we got to check your lymph nodes. I didn't hear check your lymph nodes. I heard cancer. I said, I'll never touch a cigar again. I haven't touched a cigar in 18 years. And that was enough for me. And, that was enough for me. I said, no, I ain't going to touch. I don't even want to go near it. And so how people perceive. So I've gone through Pat, I've gone through Terry, now to go through Mel and perceive Mel. If you were good friends with Mel, if your family needs something, he'd be the first one with money to put in your hand. And he wouldn't even ask it back from you if it was for something, if it was a good cause. He wouldn't even ask it back. If you offered it back to him, if you offered to take it, give back to him, he'd refuse and say no. There you go. He took care of his mother, he took care of his sisters, he took care of his nieces and nephews. All he ever wanted in life was to have his job at WWF. He could care less about anything else. But if you were a friend of his, no matter what you were going through, he was going through it with you. It was almost like a fantasy friend to was like, this person can't be true. He's allowing me to go and see something that it's a fantasy of mine to be around. And on the other hand, it's like, is this person too good to be true kind of thing? And it wasn't the fact that he was too good to be true. It's just that we don't have enough people in the world like that. And I don't know how else I can say that other than, that's the way I can say it.
I know that you love the man. I know that he was like a father for a friend. He was a friend to you. Let's just be honest. He was a good person to you, and I know that you miss him, and I know I get it. I can't deny anything you said as far as that. But there could be a chance that maybe there was something there.
If I could get the other guy on the phone, if I could get him, if I could say, hey, you guys can reach out to this guy, and he would probably tell you the exact same story I just said. His mother would tell you the exact same story about how whatever your problem was, he would hear it. He would take care of it with you. And
I believe that. I believe that the Mel Phillips that you knew was a damn good man, was a good guy, stand-up person. But I also can't deny that there are a lot of fucking...
Would he use the job against you? No. Because he wasn't that...
I don't think that was ever an allegation. I don't think that was ever one that anybody made. The whole thing about that Mel Phillips was using the job against anybody, I think that it was his interaction with youth that really bothered people.
Because the thing with Lee Cole is, now here's the funny part with him to me is, they weren't grooming you. What? So now you're telling me they went out and specifically groomed certain people to do this to? Your brother was groomed, but everybody else wasn't? So what they do? Oh, we're going to go one every 6 kids? So how do they pick and choose which one they're grooming, Lee Cole? How do they do it? How do they choose which one they groom?
The facts that we have been going on are based on the people that were there,
yeah.
Whether they are in cahoots or not, which I kind of find hard to believe, especially with the time that it happened, where it was, and how they could have kept in contact. I don't think that would be possible. What I do think is something happened. Whether it was once, twice, 7 times, I don't know. Something happened. People knew something, and it got to a point of where it is now.
Like I said, that's why I said to you. Was Terry more of the open guy than Pat and Mel? Absolutely. If Terry had gone down by himself on this, would I have said he's 100% guilty? No. I would have said he's guilty of being friendly when he has the extracurricular in him. That's what I mean by that. Losing control of his mouth when he was drinking or smoking, yes, he had that problem, which, you might know a lot of people like that too. Unfortunately for him, he might have used it in the wrong kind of way. Does he know half the shit that he ever said? Probably not. He probably didn't remember half the stuff he said, because you could ask him a question the next day, ask him if hey, was I still on? and you would have to refresh his memory because that's his working thing was like that. Except now, when he was on the road, the more he was around Vince, the less he did that stuff.
As a grown man, he should not have the big brother watching him type of lifestyle where, and you're right. And again, I don't think we'll come to I don't think you and I are going to come to a consensus on anything, but I do think that we've broken a lot of ground and had a wonderful interaction as far as this. I think that people are going to watch this and maybe be willing enough to look at it from another direction, which I think ultimately that's what you want. You want people to look at this and go, maybe there's something here to this.
Well, that's what if it was just Terry by himself doing all this, and let's say he had gotten suspended for a certain amount of time because of his conduct. Could everybody have lived with that? Absolutely. If Mel had gotten reprimanded for being his boss's, how can I say, message boy, maybe so. Because, hey, shit flows downhill. That's it. When it came to Pat shouldn't even be brought up because Pat had nothing to do with what happened to Tom Cole. Nothing.
That's saying, but we discussed that Tom Cole has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about with Pat. Right. The stuff that comes up with Pat has everything to do with other people and adults. I'm never going to say that Pat Patterson was a predator in the pedophile sense. Do I think that there were things that were said that he had done that may have been a little bit, come on, Pat, that wasn't right.
I'll put it like this. Here was one of Pat's the problem. He's in the locker room with you. You got your towel on. Okay? He's going to walk over to you and say, hey, how you doing? And try and take his fist and go, pow. Just to make you do that. And if he got you to drop your towel, he'd laugh his ass off and walk away. Okay?
And again, we've heard the stories about that. But there's there's other testimonies from people who are credible. And like I said, we'll go into that.
Yeah.
You're here to talk about your friendship with Mel and even to Terry to some regard. And I understand that you're defending the guys, and I get it. I'm so grateful to have sat here and talked to you. I had no idea how this was going to go. I know we talked, my wife and you corresponded, and that, we had set this up. I have literally been dreading this for almost, 2 weeks now?
Yes.
Because I didn't know how it was going to go. I think that you are a fucking amazing guy to talk to. You're not a fool by any stretch of the imagination. You're a passionate guy. You believe in what you believe. And that's a beautiful thing, and for anybody that's watching this, understand Gerard's not on fucking trial here. So criticize whoever you want. Do not criticize this man for having the courage to stick up for his friends, for guys that he believed in. And I want to make it also very clear, the second that we see any of that, as much as we believe in free speech and we believe in people have the right to have an opinion, the second it goes beyond the line, out of respect for this man, you will be fucking bounced. I don't want you here. I don't want you here to sit here and have this conversation.
Do me a favor. I don't want that. Let him do it.
Start going low. I mean, you can have an opinion. That's fine. But if someone were to ever, say something horrible about you and call you some sort of fucking sympathizer, I'm sorry. And I respect you and I respect your opinion. I'm calling a hard line on that. That's bullshit. So that being said, we're going to close this out. Fucking 3 hours almost in. Hang tight. I want to talk to you about some stuff, but Gerard, it's been a pleasure. You are a fan. You're a human being who has real life opinions, and I will treasure this conversation.
I'm not getting paid to wear this either.
Fucking Mark. That's what you are. Fucking Mark. That being said, I'm Dan. That's Gerard. My wife is in the back, and we'll catch you later.
Bye.